this computer. Okay, awesome. All right. Hello. This is Proteus Debate Academy. My name is Tanya. Today we're going to be talking about NFA Nationals. Rae and Josh, would you like to introduce yourselves? Or would you like me to introduce
Sure.
you?
Yeah, we'll introduce ourselves. Thank you. Hi. Hi, I'm Ray. I'm a student at Western Kentucky University. I'm studying international affairs, and yeah.
And I'm Josh, also debater at Western Kentucky University, studying English. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
Thank
okay.
you so much, Antonia, for letting us introduce ourselves.
Yeah, of course. I'm a really generous person like that. Okay. So, like I said, we're talking today about NFA results. Would you guys like to share also your NFA results?
Realized that should have gone in the introduction. Yeah, that's fair.
Yes, yeah.
At the NFA tournament, I won the final round and was the top speaker of the tournament.
Yeah, and then I went 5-1, was third seed, and got second speaker.
Good, good. So
Dropped early in elims, but who cares? It's a great time.
it's a beautiful time.
It's a
It's
beautiful time.
and then WKU won overall debate sweeps, which was also very, very cool. Okay, so before we get started, just want to thank, the NFA tournament staff. Thank you to Shauna and Shannon for tabbing. It's a good time, good tournament. Um, and before we get into the events of the tournament, Rae and Josh, would you like to share a rose and a thorn from the week?
Yeah, Josh, you can go first with that.
Perfect. Thank you. So I think my rose was having a team that worked very hard and consistently going up into the tournament. And I think it really showed, given that we had like 90% of our debaters in elims. And it's like throughout the tournament, it was consistently like a team that was really like uplifting and good with each other, but also it's like a result of a lot of work. So that was my big rose. I thought that was really cool. My thorn was for anybody that was there. Apparently, this was even getting as far in as into our coaches' football, like fantasy football group chat, was that there was a holding pattern on the tournament. And the holding pattern, it wasn't in reality that bad, but it was like after like 4 hours of prepping opponents for double octa finals, everybody was like, "We want the pairings already," and it was so. When we found out that the round was just going to be delayed to the next day, Justin Kirk did high knees down the entirety of the building, and our coach sprinted, putting his fists in the air, saying, "We are taking this to the streets." So in a way, it was a thorn, secretly a rose, because it was hilarious to watch it go down, but also it wasn't very fun to watch the round delay today.
That's good. That's a good thorn, good rose, right?
Yeah. For me, my rose, it was probably one of my favorite LD rounds I had this year. My octafinal round v. Zach Jones from North Texas. Um, it was a new AF, which it was like very kind of complicated. I won't get too much into like the specifics of the round, but we like broke a new DA that we had planned for actually a separate AF, but it still had some applicability. Debating Zach is always just really fun, and yeah, I thought that was a really great round, and I really had a good time during it. I would say my thorn was that we didn't get to break any of the like three new apps that we had written, which I guess could be perceived as like a good thing because like we didn't have to, but like I don't know, it was most of what I worked on in like the 2 weeks prior to NFA and post NDT. Like I really didn't do very much neg prep, so it did kind of feel like some of that was just kind of thrown in the toilet, but I guess there's a silver lining there.
Yeah. I mean the new advantage was red.
The new advantage was red.
Advantage was red. Day one. Right?
No, not.
Right.
Oh yeah, there
Speaking of
was a
new
new
apps,
advantage day one.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So there's
speaking of
that.
new apps, do you want to share what one of the new apps was that you didn't get to break?
I'm assuming you're referring to Greenland. This is
Yeah.
this is really my big thorn. We wrote a really fun app about banning AI use in Greenland, and it was just so much fun. And I thought I was going to be able to break it in finals. I ended up flipping neg, um, so I didn't get a chance to. But I posted it on my wiki, so if anyone wants to see it, you can see it. And it was going to be a lot of fun. Trust me.
I can put a link to your wiki in the description so people can see it. Okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So, then Ray, you got into this a little bit with your roast, but are there any debaters at the tournament that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of really great seniors graduated. So I'm thinking people like Zach Jones from North Texas. A bunch of the Washburn debaters were seniors and have been really strong all year. Um, I'd also like to shout out the person who I faced in finals, Henry from Pitt, had just an insane Cinderella run throughout the tournament and like is definitely going to be the person that people remember from 2025 NFA. Just a really, the final round was really fun and it was, just a crazy good run.
Yeah, that was wild. I judged Pitt in I think octafinals or double octafinals, and I was very surprised because I heard after the fact that they were a novice. I was very surprised to hear this. Because I would not have assumed that that was a novice debater off of the round that I judged, and apparently there was some logistical reasons for that. But I think that they're gonna do really well next year. Joshua?
So to start off, I just want to say I think Sebastian Gloss is a debater that the community is going to miss a little bit, for better or for worse. And uh, I think that towards the end of the tournament, they were just very clearly one of the top debaters that surprisingly, I was almost hoping we got further. They got out on a very close decision in quarterfinals in a very good debate. So we'll definitely miss Sebastian a lot. They've been one of the top performers of the year. Additionally, I think it'd be hard to say uh, they're like hard to talk about some of the top debaters this term without talking. One of the seniors that was mentioned, Cade, got out in semifinals, but clearly is fantastic with being the national champion last year. And from there, people were expecting them to be a favorite to be in finals. So a fantastic career that I feel like it's sometimes easy to overlook how good somebody's career can be, especially when they won nationals the year before, when they don't win it their senior year. Besides that, just congratulate, like big shout out to a bunch of the debaters on our team that got walked over. We had a bunch of really good debaters at the tournament. Nick Shinkin, Antina Clementi, Sage Carter. I believe some others probably got Jacayla got walked over. So lots of really good debaters that didn't get to have their final debates, and that's a lot of people to get walked over all throughout one tournament. And so I feel like a lot of their names could be up here as tournament champion if things just went a little bit differently. For example, in prelims. So that obviously to them, big shout outs.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So now thinking back to like your own rounds, were there any personal takeaways that you had from competing at NFA that you would like to share?
Ray, do you want to go first with this one, or do you want me to go first?
Um,
Your face looks very,
I
very in
think
thought right
personal
now.
takeaways in terms of Josh, go first, and then I'm forming
Okay.
some thoughts.
So I think my biggest takeaway from this tournament was that consistency is one of those valuable things that any team can have. We saw a lot of really good debaters. I'm not going to like name drop to like rub salt in the wound, but there's a lot of like really good debaters that seemed to lose a lot of like major rounds on doing something that they possibly didn't want to, or that they weren't as prepared for. So whether it's like breaking a new AF that you weren't prepared for how to defend, and you didn't do any like especially I know going to the tournament, I wasn't going to break any new apps because I'm like, I didn't have any practice rounds on new apps. And we see a lot of teams that have consistency seem to be doing a lot better. So the teams that are being like the same app for the whole season, like for example, like Sebastian, I don't think his app changed much at all. The plan text changed more than the actual advantage did throughout the year. And with that, to be fair, he also got really good at defending it, and that clearly showed. Versus a lot of teams that were debaters of probably equal skill that could have gotten as far, but a little bit of a lack of consistency might have been their downfall.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Mine is a little bit more technical and granular. I think the past semester of NFA-LD has kind of, you know, changed the way I think about being negative in LD. Um, I think teams should be a lot more willing to throw in anywhere from 2 to 4 more off case than they think is required. Which like kind of sounds like a meme, but genuinely it's like the only recourse the neg or the app has is like theory. And if they make a big theory push, they're almost certainly going to drop something else, which lets you overcorrect in the 1NR. So like, I don't know. Just combined with the fact that also I think a lot of people are very hesitant to go for theory in the 2AR, and a lot of judges are even more hesitant to vote on it. I think it's just kind of like I don't, it kind of reshaped the way I did like thought about being neg this tournament.
I think that's true, yeah. Like judging some of the rounds, there were a lot of rounds people were reading like 2 or 3 off, and I think that
Got to pump those numbers up.
yeah, I gotta
Sorority
run those numbers
numbers.
up for sure. For sure. Okay. Then based off of that, what's some advice that you guys would have for debaters next year? I guess, Ray, the advice would be to increase the number of off that you read.
Is to, I mean, yeah, I think that really I think the problem with NFA is that people are too honorable. Um, I think that the negs need to become more terroristic, for lack of a better word, especially on a topic like AI, where it's just like neg ground is really not great, and people were very smart. I think people were doing a decent job with this on the YAF. A very popular affirmative for this tournament from like multiple teams was to basically ban federal uses of AI in the government to like fire people, which is just very hard to get a DA to, because it's doesn't affect the private sector at all. It doesn't affect like law enforcement or privacy. It's like sort of a very small subset of automation. And so that is kind of something I thought should have been abused more throughout the year. I thought people were reading apps that linked way too much to DAs based off of the resolution that they were given. And I think that yeah, generally speaking, the AF and neg, there needs to be sort of a greater level of I'm going to take everything away from the other side. And I felt like that was a little bit lacking.
Hmm.
Right.
So I think my takeaway or advice for debaters in the future would be I think something that I was realizing through a lot of debates wasn't changing by some debaters was like case engagement. And if a debater was to choose what to invest more into next year, uh, a lot of off cases stayed the same throughout the season. Like I know at WKU we read the state's counter plan. I think almost every round from every debater throughout the entirety of the season. Same thing. Like the politics DA would change a little bit, but for the most part, like state's counter plan would stay the same. Econ DA was there every time. It changed to like the innovation DA, so that like little bits of different forms. But like look at the off cases that were used from like from January to NFA. I think there's very little innovation, possibly in terms of like the one in C. Like I think we had a lot, like we added some offs, changed some offs, but like the strats were the same. But the case engagement, I think, got a lot better. And so that like often involved like giving each debater like one or two specific AFs to be like, you are just going to cut cards against this AF. And so that would be something where a lot of teams are which is more dedicated time. And that's something that I want to do more on. Like it's a personal goal to spend more time on each half because that's how you beat affirmatives is by proving them wrong.
This is true. This is true.
Very insightful.
Can't argue with that. Do you have any advice for the average Proteus viewer, which I assume is a high schooler, who's not doing NFA-LD?
Cut case snags. Uh, the advice stays the same, at least for me. I mean, if you're doing high school LD, uh, why are you dropping advantages? Cut more case cards. If you're doing high school PF, why are you dropping contentions? Cut more case cards. I don't. I think that everybody, like the best teams, are the ones that have consistent block files and responses to teams and aren't just prepared to defend their own. It's a little bit of doing both, and so I said that it sounded like a little bit disparaging a second ago, but it's like just the teams that do better are the teams that like prep out opponents' cases more, and so that's how you can get some of that consistency that may have been mentioned earlier.
I don't know, what's the average demo of a Proteus viewer?
Couldn't tell you.
All right, great. Uh, my advice to the high schoolers is to not lock yourself into one argumentative zone. I think it's really easy to label yourself according to the community's preconceived notions of what kinds of debaters there are. I think that that is limiting both to your win percentage and to your sort of knowledge as a person and how well-rounded you are as like a student and someone who ostensibly cares about learning things. I think being able to, regardless of the kinds of arguments you like most to read, being flexible and reading from a cross literature basis is something that I think will really accelerate you above your peers.
Good point. Good point. And what a beautiful tournament this was. What a beautiful week. What a wonderful time we all had. Um, but after now that NFA is over, what are some predictions we have for next year based on the debaters that are graduating versus the ones that are staying? What do we think is gonna happen next year?
Josh, you want to go?
Sure. So my thought of the state of the circuit, and this is both a critique and a call to action, is uh, having more judges with experience in the activity come back. And right now, and I say this is no like shade to any school, and I know that there's definitely probably judges that you could fully argue are underqualified coming from even our school, and I know it's a challenge, but like a lot of tournaments, they uh, might have judges pulled, for example, from the speech pool, and that's like no fault of those judges. They probably didn't want to be there. If I'm a speech judge, I don't want to be judging LD debate. But that's something that tournaments have to try their best, in my opinion, to get a little bit further at is possibly pulling more judges, and that's something that I think seniors could really help with. We see lots of like some of the best judges on the circuit right now are people that were just in the activity. I mean, I think Joseph Wooford, for example, is a judge that I am overjoyed to get, and like they did LD debate last year, and so
Did
more
policy this
seniors
year
getting back in.
also.
Hmm?
They like just did policy like a few months ago also.
Hmm. I don't know if that's like public knowledge. I didn't want to out them because they don't have a bachelor's, but
Don't think we care.
they don't care. I don't know. I told on the safe side, but yeah, that's like I think right now the activity could benefit from that because I think that means better feedback. A lot of debaters they leave a tournament and they might have got 5 ballots, but those 5 ballots might be from people that don't have the insight as to what should your team's tub look like for prepping, what should these speeches look like ideally, and that's something that I mean. Every debater that stays with it, you probably are in the activity not just because you like winning, because winning isn't consistent, but you like growth. And so having some level of desire for growth is something that means that we need judges that are willing to give the hard feedback that debaters need to hear. I think some of my best rounds this year were losses, like losing round 4 at the Grand, like Elam 4 at the Grand Prix. I got like feedback that was so valuable that I was able to use like later throughout the season on like how I was doing like link debating on the politics TA, and I'm like, that's good. I want more of that. And so
Yeah,
judges are
definitely.
Yeah.
cool.
That kind of
Um,
go ahead, Ray.
no, sorry, you go.
I was just gonna say that would bring me to another question, but first, Ray, you answer that question, then I'll ask the follow-up question.
I see. State of the circuit, I think that this was a year with a lot of attrition, and so we've already kind of shouted out like a lot of the really good seniors who are leaving. And so for me, the state of the circuit is quite exciting because I kind of view it as open season. You know, it's anyone's game in terms of who's going to be at the top. Um, I think, you know, obviously I don't know who like other teams are recruiting. I think it's possible, like kind of how, you know, Pitt did this year, like a freshman kind of comes in and like does some serious work to the circuit and like surprises everyone. So like in that sense, I don't think it's like a super predictable circuit, which I actually think is like kind of exciting to see, you know, who's going to come out on top at the end of all of it.
Yeah, definitely. So back to kind of what Josh was talking about with judges, there's been a lot of talk in the Facebook group about potential rule changes to NFA next year. And so what are some rules that perhaps you would like to see changed? or added or modified?
I'll start. I think that the NFA-LD tournament needs to not be a part of the comprehensive NFA tournament, which I think is a hot take, but I think is just kind of necessary for the tournament or for the circuit's like sustainability. A lot like Western Kentucky is very blessed to have a lot of institutional funding. I don't think it's controversial to say that most teams on the circuit do not have that. At least to the extent that Western does. And like I've talked with people from other schools, and because NFA is like usually in a hard to get location, and it's like 6 to 7 days, including like travel, like it's a full week thing. It's like I was talking to someone and they were like, yeah, like half of our budget went to this tournament, which also inhibits the amount of tournaments that they can go to in the regular season, which is probably partially why tournament numbers are declining to a certain extent. Uh, but yeah, it's not necessary to have a 5 day LD tournament. It drags. It's 2 rounds a day. We could like the Grand Prix has, I think, an equal or larger number of rounds in 2 days.
It's larger, yeah,
It's larger.
because
Tanya
it's
said so.
so yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's double bracketed, sir. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's like maybe a hot take. I don't know how achievable it is, but like, I don't know.
yeah, I think separating would make some sense, even for. So I think the idea is like it allows full service teams to bring their whole team, but even for people who do both speech and debate, it just seems very like it's just very grueling. It seems like it's just like a very difficult time.
Yeah.
It seemed like Tess was always running around when it was her senior year. It seems like Nick was always running around this year. Like they didn't have time to prep for stuff. Like it's just it logistically becomes kind of a nightmare if you have a lot of speech events and are
I I think it maybe made more sense back in the olden days when kids would like do a lot of stuff and like double dip. But I think these days I don't know. Are we like the only major squad that brings both or like has debaters that also do speech?
I think Truman has like a
Truman, yeah, that's fair.
yeah, and I think some schools have debaters that'll do like LPs and LD,
That's fair.
but that's I think less common. I think like Pacific has some speech kids, but they are mostly debate. But it is like not especially common.
Yeah, I think people, that is all just to say, like, I think teams are getting more specialized in the sense that, like, because the sort of workload of debate is gradually increasing, it's like that means you have less and less time to do like speech events. So I think how important it is to have a tournament where debaters can do speech is becoming less important. I'll stop there and I'll let Josh go.
Oh no, I think that's a really valuable thing that I know it's like hard to talk about. I think of like it's a hard pill to swallow for the community to think that maybe have a tournament that doesn't coincide with speech because like that does cause other logistical problems. I see that that could uh like I think about some of our debaters that like do like to double dip. It's like does that potentially hurt them? Because I'm like part of me was thinking like what if we just did a tournament where you're only allowed to enter in one debate or speech and that does sound a little bit hard for some of those debaters, but I'm also like, what if that's a necessary thing because it keeps the tournament down for everybody? So that could be a cool innovation. Okay, so besides that, the actual rule change that I wanted to uh, talk about was having better rules for mandatory amounts of prep time. Uh, I think that this tournament, for example, there were some rounds that the pairing would come out and we would have 15, 20 minutes and that would be something that would definitely be hindering to the round for many debaters, especially being on the negative against some of these apps. Like you want to use your beer and prep time, especially because you're walking for half of it anyway. Um, that's something that would be very, very valuable. Using prep time for walking is usually not ideal. Then we see debaters in the hallways like walking with their laptop open, and that makes me feel bad a little bit. So I think that'd be cool. Or that, and also possibly including mandatory rounds judged by for judges, similar to the NDT. Not as many rounds, because the NDT requires you to have judged so many rounds throughout the course of a year. However, even if it's just like that you judged one tournament throughout the year, that would incentivize tournaments. That would one incentivize teams to get more better judges in to the actual judging pool earlier in the year. That's something that I would hope for a lot. Because if there's some judges that only want to judge for NFA, that feels a little bit hard. Like, why are you only judging for NFA when you haven't seen the topic before? If you're seeing the topic round one of the national tournament, uh, some might say that's not ideal. And I think that's something that also really runs into logistical issues. Most rule changes haven't happened because people recognize there's always a counter argument. And that's like what we learned to do in debate. But uh, it is also, it'd be kind of cool.
I want to correct you on one thing and then add on to something, Josh. I'm
So
the first thing, this isn't a major thing. I still largely
that's why you were
agree with
checking your
you.
pulse. Were you getting angry?
No, I just rest my fingers there sometimes to make sure I'm not dead. My the thing I was going to correct you on is I'm pretty sure, and Tanya can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost positive the NFA judge training that's mandatory, like tells you what the res is.
It does. It does tell you the res.
It does, which is not the same as having judged rounds, I will grant
You
you.
know the topic.
But you do know the topic. It does quiz you and you have to get it right, I think. Uh,
I think it's a true or false question. I think it's, is this the topic? Yes or no?
okay, yeah, fair enough, sure. But just wanted to briefly uh, actually you there. The second thing that is sort of related to this is like entourage rules, similar to the NDT, which if you don't know what those are, basically if you're providing material support to a team, you have to be in the judging pool. A lot of coaches were not in the judging pool and instead just hired judges. Which I don't know, I think advantages big teams who can afford to like pay people and then just have their coaches prep out their students. I think that that provides kind of an unfair advantage.
No, I think that's definitely true. And it's just very difficult, I think, to hire judges for the tournament itself. Like it's hard to like like Josh was saying, like it's good to have experienced judges, and certainly coaches are familiar with the topic before the tournament. It
Hopefully.
seems like there's not really much of a disad to having them judge other than there's less time to prep the students, but I think for the sake of the tournament overall, it would probably be better to have those people judging. Um, I have a rule change. I think there should be a novice bracket, or not a novice bracket, novice division instead of a novice breakout. I think it's just interesting that at the, the national tournament, novices are just put into open, that there is not a separate novice division, especially when like I don't think we should change like the way that you qual. I think if a novice, once a novice division exists, still feels that they would like to compete in open, sure, all the more power to them. But I think there needs to be a separate novice division. By the time the novice bracket or the novice breakout is happening, enough damage has been done. There's just I think
Yeah.
there just needs to be one. Like because sometimes novices will break and then they'll immediately like that happened with a mom a couple years ago who was a competitor at WKU, who was a true novice, broke, immediately dropped, and then didn't get to compete in the novice bracket, even though technically he would have been like the top novice at the
I mean,
tournament.
yeah, since you were the top seed.
Yeah, so it's I just and then like it messes up seeding too, because if a significant enough part of the pool is novices, if you hit a novice or not as an open debater is gonna like massively skew your record. So it's just it's I feel like there's gotta be a novice division. I feel like there simply must be. Um
Wow, that was beautiful.
thank you. Thank you. Um okay, do we want to talk about topic papers at all or
Sure.
forming? Okay, cool. What are you guys thinking? Josh,
Josh,
are
if you
you
want to go
Huh?
first,
Oh,
because you
sure. I
technically
can.
submitted one.
I did technically submit one. So for me that doesn't know, I submitted I didn't even work on it. I submitted the international obligations topic paper. It was submitted for policy. I thought this paper was really good, and also I know that some teams compete in both policy and LD, and having those topics align is usually ideal. Even though international obligations it's not going to end up being on the slate for policy. I think it's still a really cool topic for LD, given that we are to make sure I don't say anything too political. Uh, we are living in a government with Trump as the president, and that means some topics might have some different interactions based on Trump being the president versus Biden being the president. I think that's kind of pretty non-controversial. So I think international obligations is a topic that is one that could work well given Trump being the president, because he doesn't have much of a workaround in how the government broadly takes in obligations compared to some topics that rely on more like weight for him to put in. If the topic doesn't involve how the White House government moves in some way more broadly, then there's lots of room for the president to do things that counteract it. So I think international obligations is a top paper for me. The other one that I think is really cool is Latin America. I think this topic has a lot of affirmatives, which is arguably one of the biggest downsides of it. I think both topics I like have a lot of affirmatives, but the trade-off is that they have a good variety of literature. Means especially in a world where things are constantly evolving, we don't know if tariffs aren't going to exist tomorrow, and we want a topic that ideally isn't messed up by any of that. Just like a little bit line by line. Space topic paper, I think it's really cool, great area. I'm a little bit confused why there is both United States and possible Chinese actors in the possible resolutions. I feel like usually top papers have more unified actors across it. Usually the most variety we'll see is like either United States or United States federal government. And here I'm like United States, USFG, China, Russia, like very big variety of possible actors in the resolutions. Uh, Middle East topic, Middle East, North Africa. I thought that topic is really cool, but I am very intrigued as to what requires some sort of minimum, what the floor is for some of the resolutions. For example, a affirmative that was just like Trump should build apartments in Palestine possibly is a viable app. And if that's the case, I'm curious what other stuff could be come up with. Because when I know that I feel like I usually like bigger apps, and so I'm not usually even thinking of small apps. And so the other two ran into similar questions. I'm trying to remember what the other ones were. My bad. Oh, Arctic paper. I thought that was cool. I find it interesting that high school and college could line up topics because it makes me wonder either are college debaters going to steal from the high school wiki or high school debaters going to steal from the college wiki? And I don't think that should change whether or not the topic is chosen. I just think that it's interesting. It is certainly something that could happen. So yeah, those are my thoughts on some of the top papers. I'm a big fan of international obligations and Latin America.
Rae, what about you?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I'll add, I won't rehash a lot of that. A lot of my opinions are the same. The one thing I'll add to the stealing arguments point is that we actually had our topics aligned 2 years ago with the college policy topic. It wasn't the exact same resolution, but it was about nuclear posture. Um, I felt like I didn't really see that many teams in LD stealing that much from policy. Certainly not the other way around. Um, but I don't know. I think it might be kind of an overblown fear. Not to say that that's what you were doing, but I can see how someone would be concerned about that. But I also think like historically, I don't know, people kind of write their own stuff because they'll like understand it more and maybe like use some evidence from the other side to like fill in the cracks. But generally, not very much. I also think you forgot about the India paper.
I did
Um,
forget.
the India paper, which I believe was submitted by some people from Pitt. Uh, so I'll speak to that one. I think it's interesting. I have never really talked about it in debate before for as long as I've been competing. Um, so I'd love the opportunity to do so. My concern is it feels like the direction that the paper wants to take is one of being pro-engagement with India, but to my understanding, that is the status quo, uh, which I think creates some problems. So I kind of struggle to visualize like what would the topic af like what would the core af be is like kind of something I'm struggling with the paper. Um, Trying to think if I have any other different takes from what Josh said. Um, Not really. I think I'm gonna argue with some people over Facebook about them, but really, I love IR topics, so I'll be feasting no matter what.
It I'm excited to have a different topic. That will be nice. Uh okay.
You want to explain that more?
I think I don't think I I don't think I need to.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Sure, move on then.
I think if you look at the topic that we had, you'll understand what I'm saying or you won't.
Hey,
Okay, so is there anything else you guys want to add to any of those before we wrap up? Anything else you would like to add before we get into our closing questions?
that covers it for me.
All right, then it's time for our questions that we ask all of our interviewees. First, what is your most controversial debate opinion? Josh?
Brady of yours. I have a funny one, and this is one that I've gotten into arguments over people with.
Okay.
And
By
it's
the way,
very
that's
minor. It's so minor.
Okay.
Just to paint the picture, normally in LD and policy, if the NR, like if the final negative speech goes for just topicality, 6 minutes topicality, the affirmative debater then will just go to the T page. They don't extend case. My issue is I think that you should still have to have some sort of extension of offense because usually two ARs are just going to be defense on T, which like then leaves like functionally no offense, which would like leave a neg presumption ballot. Uh, so that's my little hot take. I'm just like, it doesn't hurt to like extend case for like 10 seconds. And I think that a lot of debates, especially ones that rely on like you're not impact turning, there's no RVI. What offense do you get off of the entirety being T? And I have gotten into including with some like people that I'm like I respect a lot with policy. I'll just like mention the hot take because like people love to ask that question. And usually the outcome is them being like, it's just how it's done. It's just how it's done. And I'm like, you know what? That's fair. I do it too. Like I do that in rounds, so I recognize it's okay to get away with. But I'm like, if somebody asked me to change debate, I would think that's a very minor change that I thought a lot about.
So if you were judging around and someone did not extend case, would you drop them on presumption?
No. So I recognize that it's a community norm sufficiently that I'm like, it's every unless I was to put it at the top of my paradigm and make it a very clear I will not vote on this, it would be a very outlandish thing for me to suddenly differ on. And I think it's an unreal expectation for somebody to meet that sort of like that sort of idea for me without unless like I go like right before the 2AR, I'm like, by the way, this is like this very niche opinion I have. Uh, I don't think it's an expectation that somebody should have to follow, but it is something that I like. That's why I'm like, I don't impose it on others. I recognize that this is my burden to bear, that I
Yes.
believe this.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my hot take.
That's a
uh
that's a take.
Tanya, you said you have to leave at 3.
Yes.
All right, because I'm gonna take 14 minutes. Just
Okay.
we gotta talk. I'm joking. We'll have to talk about it later though, because that is controversial and interesting. I would say my controversial opinion. I have definitely a couple. Um, Here's one of them. If you are a 2N or just a neg, like this describes your neg wiki page in LD because you're just one person. If more than 50% of your 2NRs are either a counterplan that competes on the words should and resolved, or is a critique of fiat, and you look down on the other person, you're either racist or you do not understand the mechanics of your argument. Because mechanically, the basis of this, I think mechanically, the counterplans that compete on immediacy and certainty are like basically the same critique of like the
That's fair. Could you explain the second half where you're like, and you look down on the other, who is the other person?
sorry, yeah, like if you look down on like the person reading the fiat K or on the person reading process counterplans.
Oh, I see, I see. Okay. Wait, so if you read one more time.
I thought about how I was going to phrase this for a while. So
Okay.
I've blundered immensely. Uh basically just I don't know.
Fair enough.
What part of what are you
I
confused
forget what
about
you
with the
said at
part?
the beginning.
Okay. Basically what all I'm getting at here is like if you frequently go for counterplans that compete on should and resolved,
Right.
or you go for the fiat K and you look down on the other position, I'm
Oh, I see,
basically
I
just
see,
saying
I
you're
see. Okay,
hypocritical.
okay. I see.
We got there.
We got there. We did. We got there. Okay, okay. Then the next question, who is the one person who has helped you the most in your career and does not know it?
Are your guests normally just like not thanking the people that have helped them? Like,
No, it usually takes people like a minute to come up with an answer to this one.
no, I mean, like, I definitely can think of people that maybe they don't know how much they helped me. Uh, would be something. Like, I think my high school debate coach, for example, hasn't seen how much I have gone in debate, specifically off the back of them. And I think that would be an example. So, uh, Matt Bartula was a coach, and he didn't even like, I think, coach me much like on arguments. He is a wonderful person that surprisingly understands like all the arguments in debate very well for being something that didn't do the activity and also can't cut cards. And all that combined, he is somebody that I think filled me with a passion for debate that has kept me going to now. Besides that, I think the funny answer is Brian DeLeon. DeLeon, I forgot. Everybody just calls him D'Lo. Uh, he's the one that just offhandedly recommended, like, oh, you might be able to transfer to Western Kentucky because they have good scholarships. And that is single-handedly the reason why I reached out and now go there.
You know? Okay, nice. I think those are both good, right?
I don't know these people by name, but whoever moderates r/debate, um, and I'll briefly explain because similar to kind of Josh's second thing, I met Chad, who is the director of debate at Western and who recruited me. I met him through like an innocuous Reddit post he sent out about how they were like giving out scholarships, um, which completely changed my post high school plans and made it so that I was going to debate. I originally was not going to debate in college, um, but that let me debate in college. So thank you to those Redditors.
Thank you, Reddit. Yeah. Okay. And then finally, if you had to, like, if your mind was, I guess, I suppose, wiped and you were sent back in time to when you first started debating, but you can pick like one thing you still remember how to do, what would that thing be and why?
I have an answer that's going to piss Ray and Tanya off. I already know. My answer would be my ability to vibe check arguments. To look at arguments and just like know implicitly this is. I feel like this argument will or won't work in this scenario, and uh, that's it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Right?
It's kind of a difficult question for me to answer because my where I am now in debate, I'm doing something very different from where I started, which was like local PF in Virginia. Like, I don't know, kind of difficult to say.
I guess if you were to start like over in college, like you were
Oh
gonna.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, really wish I understood verbatim because I don't know if you remember this, Tanya. I had a Chromebook for like the first year of, or I think like the first semester maybe, because I think Chad eventually had to be like, we're not doing this anymore. You're not
You're
sending Google
using
Docs to
the
people.
plugin for Google Docs, right?
Yeah, I had to use the
Yeah.
plugin for Google Docs. So this isn't really a skill. I wish that I retained my Windows laptop. Does that count? I don't know. That's
Sure,
probably
you know.
a, a decent answer.
Oh,
Um, in terms of like an actual skill, because that one's kind of like, I guess using verbatim is a skill, but I don't know. I kind of just needed a better laptop. Uh, I wish like making files was something I was really not very good at. I don't even think I really wrote any files when I was a freshman, to be fair.
yeah, I guess
I
maybe
did.
not like an entire file, but you're cutting a lot of cards.
Yeah, on Google Docs.
Google Docs, exactly.
So they were so usable for everyone else. Uh, but like
Had a lot of
when I
caps.
say making files, I mean like writing blocks,
Mhm.
having like an idea and sort of transforming it into like a complete thing that can be ready to use for like other teammates. I think that was one I really learned, you know, later on, I think would have been helpful when I was a freshman.
Definitely. Okay, cool. Well, that's pretty much it. Any
Wait,
other?
Tanya, do you have an answer to that question? What's the skill you would keep?
I don't answer these questions.
What's
You were
I feel like
answering
you'd
the
want to
other
keep your skill.
questions.
I answered
Well,
one other question. Um, and again,
I
like
guess
would
I
you want to
guess
keep this?
a novice division is it's gotta happen.
gotta
If
happen.
I could,
I
I
guess
have
it
a
makes
guess for
sense
what
though that
skill Tanya wants to keep.
you wouldn't answer these though, because don't you ask these to everyone?
I do ask this to everyone.
So
So
it would get kind of
thing
boring the final
over,
part of the video.
Tanya, can I guess what skill you would keep?
sure.
You would keep the skill on how to close and open all tabs in a Word document at once. So the ability to not have to manually like shrink every tab.
This,
Do you
yeah,
want to tell
Is
the
that a
people of
candidate?
Proteus when you learn this?
I'm gonna tell the people of Proteus when I learned this. Just later than I
I
would
mean,
have to.
it's pretty recent. It should be fresh in your memory when you
It
learned
was
this, like
fresh.
less than a month ago.
Yes, it was less than a month ago, and I do think it would have saved me a lot of prep time when I was actually debating. I was mildly infuriated that I did not know you could do that, but you know, these things happen. These
I'm
things.
crying.
To be fair, I say that as like I'm learning new functions on Word all the time. Same thing on verbatim, where it's like there's so many functions that it's hard to know all of them.
Okay.
Nobody can know all of them. Like the fact that we just learned what quick card was, like a sadly recently. I know yesterday Chad learned that Slack has a local time function. We can see what local time somebody is in by clicking on their username. And I'm like, everybody's learning new things all the time.
It's just too many functions of things and websites and programs. And I think they should all only have the functions that I understand how to use and nothing else. So no one has any advantages over me. That's the
Mm.
think what everyone should be doing. Okay, cool. So anything else anyone would like to add? Okay, awesome. Well, thank you both for coming to be on Proteus. Thank you
Yeah.
again to Sean and Shan if you're seeing this, anyone who went to NFA if you're seeing this. Great tournament, excellent times. And we'll see you next year. And that's pretty much it.
All right.
Goodbye.
See you, people. Thanks for having us, Tanya.
Stop the recording.